The cold bit deep on Seven, even through the thermal suit, pulled his collar as he walked away from the mining pit. His shift was done. 16 hours of drilling into frozen rock, pulling out the blue crystals that powered half the galaxy's ships. His muscles ached. His bones felt old, though he was only 38. The twin suns were setting, painting the ice fields in colors of orange and purple, beautiful but deadly. In 2 hours, the night storms would come. Anyone caught outside would freeze solid in minutes. Walked toward the colony gates, thinking about hot soup in his narrow bed. Then he heard it, a sound that made him stop. Crying. Not the wind, not machinery. A child was crying. He found her sitting beside the gate. She was small, maybe the size of a human 8-year-old, but she wasn't human. Her scales were deep blue, and they had patterns that glowed softly in the fading light. Those patterns were flickering, like a candle about to go out. Her tail wrapped around her legs, and her small clawed hands covered her face. One of the native people of this frozen moon. "Hey," said softly, kneeling down. "What's wrong?" The girl looked up. Her eyes were golden, with vertical pupils like a cat. Tears ran down her scaled cheeks. She looked at his face, at the colony badge on his chest that said Supervisor, and new tears came. "Sir," she whispered in Standard, the common language everyone spoke. Her voice shook. "Mama didn't come home." His chest tightened. He knew that pain, knew it too well. "What's your name?" he asked. She said, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Where did your mama go?" "The deep ice fields. She hunts thermal worms there. She left yesterday morning. She always comes back before dark. Always." Scales flickered faster. "But she didn't come back, and now it's almost night again." Looked toward the colony center. He could see others moving through the streets, tall and graceful, their scales glowing in the twilight. None of them seemed worried. "Have you told the elders?" asked. Nodded miserably. "They said Mama can survive in the ice. They said she'll come back when the storms pass. They said I should go home and wait." "That sounds like good advice," said carefully. "But what if she's hurt?" His voice rose. "What if she's trapped? What if she's calling for help and nobody comes?" The girl's scales were dimming more now, turning from bright blue to almost gray. Had worked with her for 3 years. He knew what that meant. When they got too stressed, too sad, their body's light went out. For adults, it was just uncomfortable. For children, it could be dangerous. Fatal, even. "Come on," said, helping her stand. "Let's talk to the elders together." He walked with to the section of the colony. The buildings here were different from the human structures. More open to the air, with thermal vents built into the floors. The liked it colder than humans did. Elder stood near the central fire pit. He was old, his scales almost white with age, but his eyes were sharp. "Elder," said respectfully, "Smother hasn't returned. I'd like permission to." "No search parties after dark," said firmly. His standard was perfect with barely an accent. "You know the colony rules, Supervisor. The storms will kill anyone in the open. Is a skilled hunter. She knows how to find shelter. She will return." "But what if she can't?" pressed. "What if she's injured?" "Then she will survive until morning when we can search safely." Looked down at. His expression softened. "Child, go home. Trust in your mother's strength." Shoulders shook. She turned and ran. Watched her go, then looked back at. "That child's scales are going dark." "I know," said quietly. "It is unfortunate, but I cannot risk more lives on a storm night. Would not want that." "She's just a kid." "And is an adult who knew the risks. This is our way, Supervisor. We survive by accepting what we cannot change." Felt anger burn in his chest, but he swallowed it. He nodded and walked away. Back at the human quarters, he found his crew chief, Park Wu, checking equipment logs. "Heard you were asking about search parties," Wu said without looking up. "Word travels fast." "Don't be stupid. You know what those storms do. Last month went out for 10 minutes to fix an antenna. 10 minutes. We found him frozen 3 meters from the door. I know. And you're thinking about going out anyway. Didn't answer. Wu finally looked at him. They'd worked together for years. Wu knew his face too well. It's a kid, Wu said, not your problem. She's crying. Kids cry. Her mother might be dying out there. And you'll definitely die if you go into those storms. Wu stood up. Look, I get it. I know about your daughter. I know what happened on Earth. But this isn't the same situation. No, said quietly. It's not, because this time I can do something. He went to his locker and started pulling out gear. Thermal suit, extra batteries, emergency beacon, medical kit, climbing rope. He didn't have much, but he had enough. You're really doing this, Wu said. Yes. You'll be fired, probably arrested for violating safety protocols. Probably. Wu was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed and opened his own locker. He pulled out a thermal charge pack and tossed it too. For anchor points if you need to climb, Wu said. And don't die, I hate training new supervisors. Managed a small smile. I'll try. He geared up and headed back to the gates. The first sun had set. The second was touching the horizon. Maybe 30 minutes of light left. Was there, sitting in the same spot. Her scales were almost completely gray now. I said. She looked up, hope and fear mixing in her golden eyes. I need you to show me where your mother hunts, said. The girl's scales suddenly flared bright blue, like someone had lit a lamp inside her. You'll find Mama. I'll try, but I need you to guide me. Can you do that? Yes, I know the way. I know all of Mama's hunting grounds. Then let's go, fast before the storm hits. Jumped up and grabbed his hand. Her scales were warm, warmer than human skin. She pulled him toward the gate. The second sun dropped below the horizon. In the distance, dark clouds gathered. The wind began to pick up, carrying the promise of deadly cold. Looked at the thermometer by the gate, -40 degrees Celsius, and dropping. He thought of his daughter. Her name had been. She'd been 7 when the transport crashed. He'd been off-world working. He never got to say goodbye. Maybe that's why he couldn't walk away from this. Couldn't leave sitting alone, crying in the cold. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it would get him killed. But humans, thought, had never been very good at being smart when a child needed help. Come on, he said to show me the way. The little dragon girl's scales glowed like a beacon as she led him into the frozen night. The ice field stretched endlessly before them, glowing pale blue in the darkness. Scales provided the only real light now, pulsing softly as she walked. Followed close behind, his thermal suit working hard against the dropping temperature. The wind was picking up, not the full storm yet, but getting close. Could feel it trying to push through his suit, looking for any gap, any weakness. How far? He called over the wind. Pointed ahead. Mama's first hunting ground is beyond those crystal formations, maybe 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers in this cold. Checked his suit's readout. Power was good for 6 hours at current temperature, but if the storm hit full force, that would drop to maybe 3. They walked faster. The ice beneath their feet was solid and clear. Could see down into it, see strange frozen patterns and trapped bubbles of gas. This moon had once been an ocean world before the cold came. Now it was all ice, kilometers deep. Tell me about your mother, said. Talking helped. Kept the mind off the cold. His voice brightened a little. Mama is the best hunter in our clan. She can track a thermal worm through solid ice just by feeling the vibrations, and she tells the best stories. She knows all the old tales from before our people came to this moon. Why did your people come here? It's so cold. We like the cold, said simply. Our old world got too hot, too many people, too much industry. The elders searched for a new home. They found 7. It was perfect for us. And then humans showed up to dig holes in your ice, said. looked back at him, her golden eyes curious. Mama says humans are strange. You can't survive the cold like we can. You need machines and suits and heated buildings, but you come here anyway. Why? Laughed short and sharp. Good question. I guess because we're stubborn. We see something we want and we figure out how to get it even if it should be impossible. Is that why you're helping me? Because you're stubborn? Was quiet for a moment. The wind howled around them. No, I'm helping because I had a daughter once. Her name was, she died in an accident when she was 7. I wasn't there to help her. I was working far away. So now when I see a kid who needs help, he trailed off. Stopped walking and turned to face him. Her scales pulsed brighter. I'm sorry about. Me too, kid, me too. They walked on. The crystal formations loomed ahead, towers of ice reaching toward the black sky. Some were as tall as buildings. They made strange sounds as the wind blew through them, like singing, like music that wasn't quite music. Beautiful, said. Dangerous, corrected. The crystals are unstable. They can fall without warning. Mama always marks safe paths through them. She led him between the towers, moving confidently. Saw markers as they went, scratches in the ice, small piles of stones, trail signs, had been here. These marks are fresh, said, kneeling to examine one, maybe a day old. Yes, Mama came this way. Scales flashed brighter with hope. They pushed deeper into the crystal forest. Suit alarms started beeping softly. Temperature was dropping faster now, -60 degrees and falling. Then the wind changed. It came in a sudden gust that nearly knocked off his feet. Ice crystals filled the air, sharp enough to cut exposed skin. Storm shouted, "It's starting." "Where's shelter?" yelled back. Looked around frantically. There, that overhang. She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward a jutting shelf of ice. They scrambled underneath just as the wind reached full fury. The ice above them groaned and creaked. Pulled close. His suit could keep him alive, but only if he didn't waste heat. The girl pressed against him, and he felt warmth radiating from her scales. "You're warm," he said, surprised. "Body temperature runs hot," explained. "It's how we survive the ice. We make our own heat." She wrapped her tail around both of them. "I can share with you. It will help your suit last longer." Nodded gratefully. The girl's warmth did help. It wasn't much, but enough to make a difference. They huddled together as the storm raged outside. The wind screamed. Ice and snow flew past their shelter at impossible speeds. Anything caught out there would be torn apart. "Tell me about the thermal worms," said. "What are they?" Settled closer. They live deep in the ice. They eat heat. They burrow near the planet's core where it's warmer, and they come up sometimes to feed on volcanic vents. When they move, they leave tunnels of melted ice that freeze again. Mama hunts them for their shells. The shells are very valuable. Valuable enough to risk this, gestured at the storm. "We need the money," said quietly. "It's just Mama and me. Papa died 3 years ago in a mining accident. Mama does what she has to do." Understood that. He'd done plenty of dangerous work to pay bills, to keep going after died. Sometimes survival meant taking risks. The storm lasted 20 minutes. When it passed, the ice field looked different. New drifts of snow covered the old paths. Some of the crystal towers had fallen, shattering into millions of pieces. They climbed out of shelter and looked around. "The markers are gone," said, her voice small. "The storm covered them." Checked his navigation unit. It was glitching. The storm had disrupted something, but he'd marked their starting point before they left. "Can you find the hunting ground without the markers?" he asked. Closed her eyes. Her scales pulsed in a strange pattern, slow and rhythmic. "I can feel it. Mama always says can feel the warm spots, the places where heat rises from below. The hunting ground is near a thermal vent. I can find it." She started walking, not following any visible path, just moving with certainty. Followed, trusting her instinct. They crossed fields of broken ice. They climbed over ridges of compressed snow. His muscles burned. His breath came hard. The cold was getting to him despite the suit. Looked back, saw him struggling. Not far now, I can feel the heat. And then they saw it. A place where the ice had a different color, a faint red glow from somewhere deep below. Steam rose in thin wisps from cracks in the surface. Here said, "This is Mama's best hunting ground." They searched the area, found more markers, more signs of passage, but no. Mama called, "Mama, where are you?" Only the wind answered. Pulled out his scanning unit. It could detect heat signatures through ice, at least for a few meters down. He swept it across the ground. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Then ping, a weak signal off to the left. "This way," said, moving quickly. They found the crevasse at the edge of the thermal zone. It was a crack in the ice, maybe half a meter wide at the surface, but who knew how deep? Knelt and shined his light down into it. The beam disappeared into darkness. "Hello," he called. Faint from far below, a voice answered in, then in standard, "Who is there?" "Mama," screamed, rushing to the edge. "Mama, it's me." "No, too dangerous. Go back to the colony." But relief flooded its voice. "Mama's alive, she's alive." Pulled back from the edge carefully. He shined his light down again, adjusting the beam. There, maybe 10 meters down, he could see a faint blue glow. Scales. "This is from the mining colony. Are you hurt?" A long pause. "My leg is trapped, crushed, I cannot climb." "How long have you been down there?" "Since yesterday. I fell during the storm." Over a day in the ice, even had limits. Examined the crevasse. The walls were smooth, slippery. The ice was unstable. He could see cracks spreading from the opening. "We need a rescue team," he said. "No time," his voice came up weaker now. "The ice is shifting, I can feel it. This whole section is unstable. In a few hours, maybe less, it will collapse." Looked at, the girl's scales were bright with hope and fear mixed together. He thought about calling for help. Thought about the 12 hours it would take for a proper rescue team to arrive with equipment. Would be dead by then, crushed when the ice collapsed. He looked at his climbing rope, looked at the thermal charges Wu had given him, looked at his own hands, already shaking from cold. Stupid, this was stupid. He was a miner, not a rescue specialist. He'd probably die trying. But was looking at him with those golden eyes, trusting him, believing in him. "Yeah," muttered to himself, "humans are stupid like that." He started unpacking his gear. Laid out his equipment on the ice. One climbing rope, 50 meters, 4 thermal charges, a basic harness, one emergency medical kit. Not much for what he was about to attempt. He said, "I need you to be brave now. Can you do that?" The girl nodded, her scales pulsing with nervous energy. "I'm going down to get your mother. You need to stay here and hold the rope. Can you do that?" "I'm strong," said. "Children are stronger than human children." "I believe you." Attach the rope to his harness. "But if something goes wrong, if the ice starts to break, you run. You run back to the colony as fast as you can. Understand?" "No," said firmly. "I won't leave you and Mama." Wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in her eyes, just like, stubborn as her father. "Fine, but you do exactly what I say. Deal." "Deal." Used one of the thermal charges to create an anchor point. The charge melted into the ice, then froze again, creating a solid metal spike embedded in the frozen surface. He tested it. Solid enough. He tied the rope to the anchor and dropped the rest into the crevasse. It uncoiled into the darkness. He called down, "I'm coming down, don't move if you can help it." "Human's voice echoed up. "Your body is not made for this cold. Even with your suit, the crevasse is colder than the surface. You will freeze." "Yeah, probably," muttered. He looked at, "Stay alert. If I tug the rope 3 times, pull as hard as you can." Grip the rope with both hands and her tail. Ready. took a breath. The cold air hurt his lungs. Then he backed toward the edge of the crevasse and began to descend. The ice walls closed in around him. His showed smooth surfaces, deep blue and ancient. He could see layers in the ice like tree rings, each one representing years of frozen time. It got colder, much colder. His suit's heating system kicked into high gear, draining power. The readout on his wrist showed the temperature, -90 degrees and dropping. 5 meters down, 7, 9. His hands were already going numb despite the insulated gloves. He moved faster, rappelling down the rope in controlled drops. 10 meters. He saw her. Was larger than her daughter, maybe 2 meters tall even crouched as she was. Her scales were a darker blue than's, with silver patterns that flickered weakly. Her eyes were the same golden color, but filled with pain. She was sitting on a narrow ledge of ice. One leg was trapped under a boulder of frozen rock. Blood had frozen around the wound. "Supervisor," said softly, "you are a fool." "Yeah, I get that a lot," said, landing beside her. The ledge was barely big enough for both of them. "Let me see your leg." He examined the injury with his light. The boulder was huge, easily 200 kilos. It had fallen and pinned her leg against the wall. The bone was definitely broken, probably shattered. "Can you feel your foot?" asked. "Yes, painful, but I can feel it." "Good, nerve damage wasn't complete then." "I need to move this boulder," said. "You cannot lift it, too heavy even for." "I don't plan to lift it," pulled out another thermal charge. "I'm going to melt the ice under it, let it drop away from your leg." His eyes widened. "The explosion will destabilize the crevasse." "You have a better idea." She was quiet. "Place the charge carefully against the ice below the boulder. When this goes off, you pull your leg free fast. Understand?" "Yes." Shouted up, "Get back from the edge, fire in the hole." He activated the charge and pulled as far from the boulder as the narrow ledge allowed. The charge detonated with a sharp crack. The ice beneath the boulder turned to slush. The boulder shifted, tilted, and fell away into the darkness below. They heard it hit something far, far down. Screamed and yanked her leg free. The crevasse shook. Cracks appeared in the walls. Pieces of ice began to fall. "We need to move now," shouted. He pulled out the medical kit and quickly wrapped leg in a stabilizer bandage. It would hold for a few minutes, maybe. "Can you climb?" "I can try." Tugged the rope 3 times. "We're coming up." He hooked to the rope using a spare carabiner from his harness. Then he started climbing, using the wall for leverage, hauling both himself and up. It was impossible, was too heavy. His muscles screamed, his hands slipped. They made it 2 meters, then strength failed. They stopped, hanging on the rope. "Leave me," said. "Get yourself out." "Shut up," gasped. "I didn't come this far to quit now." Above them, he could hear pulling on the rope, but she wasn't strong enough to lift both of them. The crevasse shook again. A crack appeared in the wall beside his head, spreading like lightning. "The thermal vent," said urgently. "It's destabilizing. We have minutes, maybe less." Looked down. Far below, he could see a red glow getting brighter. The vent was waking up. When it blew, this whole section of ice would collapse. His arms were failing. He couldn't hold on much longer. Then he heard it, a sound from above, singing. Was singing. It was a song, rhythmic and strong, a working song. "The pulling song," whispered. "She's singing the pulling song." Didn't understand the words, but he felt the rhythm. It was steady, powerful. 1, 2, 3, pull. 1, 2, 3, pull. He matched his movements to the rhythm. On each pull, he hauled with everything he had. Above pulled in time with her own song. 1, 2, 3, pull. They rose a meter. 1, 2, 3, pull. Another meter. His vision was blurring. His suit was screaming alarms, core temperature dropping, power at 15%. 1, 2, 3, pull. 5 meters to go. The ice groaned. Below them the red glow was bright now. Steam was rising from the depths. 1, 2, 3, pull. 3 meters. His hands were frozen to the rope. He couldn't feel his fingers anymore. He pulled using his whole body, his legs, his core, everything. 1, 2, 3, pull. 1 meter. The crevasse shook violently. A chunk of ice the size of a car broke off the wall and fell past them. 1, 2, 3, pull. Hands grabbed him, small hands but strong, was pulling him over the edge. He scrambled up and out, dragging with him. They collapsed on the ice, just as the crevasse exploded behind them. Steam and superheated water erupted from the crack. The thermal vent had blown. The ice around the crevasse cracked and crumbled, falling inward. "Move," shouted. He grabbed under one arm, took the other side. Together, they dragged the injured woman away from the collapsing ice. The ground beneath them shook like an earthquake. Fissures appeared. The entire thermal zone was coming apart. They ran, or rather ran while pulling between them. The woman hopped on her good leg, teeth clenched against the pain. Behind them, the ice field was sinking. The thermal vent had created a massive sinkhole. Crystal towers fell like dominoes. They ran until the shaking stopped. Then they ran further until his legs gave out and he fell. Fell beside him, breathing hard, collapsed between them. For a long moment, nobody spoke. They just lay there in the freezing cold, breathing alive. Finally spoke, "You pulled me out." "We pulled you out," corrected. "Your daughter did most of the work." Reached out and pulled close, wrapping her arms and tail around the girl. Buried her face in her mother's shoulder and could see her scales glowing bright and warm. "Thank you," said, looking at. "You risked your life for someone not of your kind, not even of your world. Why?" Sat up slowly. His whole body hurt. His suit was down to 8% power. They still had to get back to the colony and another storm was coming. He could see it on the horizon. But he looked at, safe in her mother's arms, and he thought of all the people who had tried to save her, who had failed but had tried. "Because a kid was crying," he said simply, "and humans are really bad at walking away from that." Studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly, as if understanding something important. "We need to move," said, checking his suit's power. "We have to reach the colony before this suit dies. Can you walk?" "I can manage," said. She tested her injured leg. The stabilizer was holding, but her face showed pain. "Lean on me," said. "Both of you, we go together." They stood supporting each other. The storm was coming closer. But they were alive, and they were together. And somehow, that felt like enough. The journey back was slower than the journey out, much slower. Couldn't put weight on her broken leg. She hopped along, using it as crutches. Every few minutes they had to stop so she could rest. Each stop meant more power draining from suit. 5% power remaining. The storm was building on the horizon. Dark clouds rolled across the ice fields like a wall. They had maybe 20 minutes before it hit. "We're not going to make it," said, checking his navigation unit. They were still 3 kilometers from the colony. "Yes, we will," said firmly. Her scales were glowing bright, determination burning in her golden eyes. Said softly, "You need to go ahead. Run to the colony, bring help." "No," scales flashed brighter. "I'm not leaving you. Either we all make it or none of us do." Looked at the girl. Saw the same stubborn strength he'd had when he decided to go into the frozen night. Humans weren't the only ones who refused to give up. "Then we move faster," he said. "I'm going to carry you." "You cannot, I am too heavy." "Let me worry about that." Handed his pack to, then he crouched down, hesitated, then climbed onto his back. She was right, she was heavy. Easily 80 kilos, maybe more. Her tail wrapped around his waist for stability. Stood up, his knees nearly buckled. His back screamed. But he took a step, then another. "Lead the way, fast as you can." The girl ran ahead, her scales lighting the path. Followed, carrying, pushing his legs to move. 3% power. His suit was dying. The heating elements were failing. Cold was seeping in through every joint, every seam. 1 kilometer to go. The storm hit. It came like a wall of knives. Wind and ice crystals tore at them. Visibility dropped to 0. Couldn't see any more. He shouted. A blue glow appeared beside him. The girl had come back. "Hold onto my tail," she shouted over the wind. Grabbed her tail with one hand while holding with the other. The girl's scales blazed like a beacon, cutting through the storm. She pulled them forward, step by step, meter by meter. 1% power. His legs were failing. His muscles had nothing left. He was running on pure stubbornness now, and even that was running out. He fell, tumbled off his back into the snow, skidded to a stop. "Get up," shouted. "Please get up." Tried, his legs wouldn't respond. The cold was in his bones now. His suit was down to emergency power, barely keeping his core temperature above dangerous levels. "Go," he said get your mother to safety." "No," was crying now, her tears freezing on her scales. "You don't get to give up. You came into the frozen night for us. You don't get to quit now." Crawled to through the snow. "Supervisor, look at me." He looked up at her. "My people have a saying," said. "The ice takes the weak, but it respects the strong. You are strong, you proved that, now prove it again. Stand up." "I can't." "You can, humans always can. That's what makes you so dangerous, so impossible, you don't know when to quit." Laughed, it came out as a cough. "Dangerous, I'm about to freeze to death." "Then freeze on your feet," said, "like a warrior." Something in her words cut through the cold fog in his mind. He'd come too far to die now, done too much. Would be disappointed if he gave up. He got his hands under him, pushed, his arms shook, his whole body shook. He stood up. "That's it," said, "now walk." Grabbed his hand. Her warmth flowed into him, not much but enough. They walked into the storm. Lost track of time. He just followed the blue glow of scales, one step, then another. His mind was foggy, his thoughts were slow. He thought about her laugh, her smile, the way she used to draw pictures for him. He thought about how her scales had been gray when he found her, how bright they glowed now. Worth it, even if he died out here, it was worth it. 0% power. His suit's heating system failed completely. The cold rushed in. This was it. This was how it ended. Then screamed, "Lights, I see lights." Looked up, through the storm he could see glows in the distance. The colony. They were close, so close. "Come on," pulled harder. Was singing now, the pulling song again, 1, 2, 3, pull. Matched the rhythm, one foot in front of the other. The lights got closer. He could see the colony walls now, could see figures moving near the gates. "Help," his voice cut through the storm, "help us." The gates opened, people came running. Saw Park Woo, saw other humans in thermal suits, saw elders. Hands grabbed him. Someone wrapped a thermal blanket around his shoulders. Someone else was checking his leg. "You crazy bastard," Woo said. "You actually did it." Tried to answer, but his jaw was frozen. His whole body was shaking uncontrollably. "Medical," Woo shouted. "Get Dr. Song now." They carried into the colony. He saw the inside of the medical center. Bright lights, warm air. Someone was cutting his suit off. Someone else was checking his temperature. "Core temperature is critical," a voice said. "Female, Dr. Song, the colony medic. Get him on the warmer, start IV fluids, move." Warm air blew over him. Feeling started to return to his fingers and toes. It hurt. It hurt worse than the cold had. Groaned. "That's good," Dr. Song said. "Pain means the nerves still work. You're going to be okay, supervisor, stupid but okay." Managed to say through chattering teeth. Both fine. They are treating's leg now. Hasn't left her mother's side. Good. You risked your life out there. Violated every safety protocol. You could have died. Yeah, said, but I didn't. Dr. Song shook her head, but she was smiling slightly. Rest now. We'll talk about the consequences later. Closed his eyes. The warmth was sinking into him. His shaking was slowing. He'd done it. Against all the odds, against common sense, against the rules. He'd brought them home. Sometimes being human meant being stupid, meant taking impossible risks for no logical reason. But sometimes that was exactly what the situation needed. He drifted off to sleep, thinking about's bright scales lighting the way through the storm, about's pulling song, about the way they'd all held together when everything was falling apart. Humans weren't strong like weren't adapted to the cold. But they had other strengths, stubbornness, refusal to accept the impossible. The will to follow a crying child into the frozen night, because that's what you did. That's what humans did. Even when it was stupid. Especially when it was stupid. Woke up in a hospital bed. His hands were wrapped in bandages. His feet were elevated and wrapped too. Every part of his body ached. But he was alive and warm. Dr. Song sat in a chair beside his bed, reading something on a tablet. She looked up when she heard him move. Welcome back, she said. How do you feel? Like I got frozen and then thawed, said. His voice was rough. That's because you did. You had severe hypothermia. Another 10 minutes out there and you'd be dead. She stood and checked the monitors beside his bed. Your core temperature is stable now. Frostbite on your fingers and toes, but not severe. You'll keep all your digits. Lucky me. More than lucky, stupid lucky. She sat back down. What were you thinking? I was thinking a kid needed help. Dr. Song was quiet for a moment. The child, she's been sitting outside your door since they brought you in, won't leave. Let her in, said. Dr. Song nodded and opened the door. Came in immediately, her scales glowing bright blue with relief. You're awake, she said, rushing to his bedside. Hey kid, you okay? I'm fine, Mama's fine too. They fixed her leg. She'll walk again in a few weeks. Scales pulsed with happiness. Then she looked down. But you almost died because of me. No, said firmly. I almost died because of my choice. Not yours. I chose to help, and I'd choose it again. Why? Mama says humans are fragile. You could have died so easily. Maybe that's exactly why, said. We're fragile, so we know how important it is to help each other, to not let people suffer alone. Thought about this. Then she reached out and took his bandaged hand carefully. Thank you for following me into the frozen night, for not leaving us. You're welcome. Dr. Song cleared her throat. Supervisor needs to rest now. The girl nodded and left, but not before her scales flashed bright in what recognized as a smile. Over the next 2 days, recovered in the hospital, his frostbite healed, his strength returned, but he knew what was coming. On the 3rd day, the colony administrator came to see him. Administrator Li Jin was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She sat in the chair beside his bed and looked at him without expression. Supervisor, she said, you violated Safety Protocol 7 Alpha, no unauthorized excursions during storm conditions. You took colony equipment without permission. You endangered yourself and a minor child. Do you deny any of this? No, ma'am. You realize I should fire you, possibly arrest you? Yes, ma'am. Lee was quiet for a moment. The elders have requested a council meeting. They want to address your case. It's scheduled for this evening. Can you walk? I think so. Then you'll attend, dress properly. She left without another word. That evening walked slowly to the council chamber. His feet still hurt, but he could manage. Park Woo met him at the door. You ready for this? Woo asked. Not really. Am I fired? That's up to the council now. They insisted on having a say. They entered the chamber together. It was a large room, half human design and half. One side was warm with chairs, the other was cold with standing platforms. Administrator Lee sat on the human side. Elder stood on the side. Between them was a raised platform where was directed to stand. The chamber filled with people, humans, and come to see what would happen. And entered last, walked slowly, leaning on a crutch, her leg in a medical brace. Elder spoke first, his voice carrying through the chamber. "We are here to judge the actions of Supervisor. He broke your human laws to save one of our people. This creates a difficulty." "The law exists for good reason," Administrator Lee said. "People die when they ignore safety protocols." "Yet this human did not die," replied. "And neither did the child. All live because of what he did. The outcome doesn't change the violation. Perhaps not by human law." Scales rippled with colors didn't understand. "But my people have laws too, older laws, laws about honor and courage." Stepped forward, limping on her crutch. "I wish to speak." Nodded. "Speak." "Supervisor risked his life for me. A human risking death in the ice for a this is unheard of." His voice was strong despite her injury. "When I was trapped, when I had given up hope, he came. When I told him to leave me to save himself, he refused. He carried me through the storm. He fell and he stood up again. He nearly froze to death, but he did not stop until we were safe." She turned to face directly. "Among my people we have a saying, we call it soul warmth. It means a fire that burns inside that no cold can touch. It is the courage to face the impossible, to defy nature itself. Most never show soul warmth in their entire lives. It is the highest honor we know." Reached into her coat and pulled out something. It was a pendant, carved from blue ice stone, hanging on a silver chain. "Supervisor," she said formally, "you carried fire into the frozen night for those not your blood. You showed soul warmth. By the ancient laws of my people, I claim you as kin by fire. You are family to me and mine, from this day until the ice melts and the stars go cold." She placed the pendant around his neck. The ice stone was warm to the touch, heated by some property didn't understand. The in the chamber began to sing. It was the pulling song, the working song, but slower, more ceremonial. Stepped forward next. Her scales were glowing so bright she lit up the entire chamber. "Uncle," she said, using the term for honored family. "You answered when I cried. You followed when I asked. You didn't give up, never give up. That's what you taught me." She hugged him and felt tears in his eyes. He hugged her back. Elder stepped down from his platform. He walked to and studied his face. "The human body is weak," said. "Fragile, poorly suited to survival. Any child is stronger than the strongest human adult." Nodded. It was true. "And yet," continued, "you went into the frozen night, into conditions that should have killed you. You saved when any logical being would have declared her lost. You did the impossible because a child was crying." The elder's scales shifted to a deep blue, a color of respect. "I have lived 140 years. I have seen many species, but I have never seen another people like humans. You are weak, yes, but you carry a different strength, a strength of the heart." He turned to Administrator Lee. "By law, this human is now kin by fire to his clan. We cannot punish family who acted with honor. We ask that you show the same wisdom." Lee was quiet for a long moment, then she stood. "The law is clear," she said, "but the law also has provisions for exceptional circumstances. Supervisor, you saved a life at great personal risk. You brought honor to this colony through your actions. Therefore, I am issuing a formal reprimand for protocol violation, but no further punishment." She almost smiled. "Besides, I'd hate to lose my best mining supervisor over something like heroism." The chamber erupted in noise. Humans clapping, singing, jumped up and down, her scales flashing rainbow colors. Park Woo clapped on the shoulder. "You lucky bastard, you should be fired and instead you're a hero." "I'm not a hero," said. "I just did what anyone would do." No, Wu said. You did what a human would do. That's different. Over the following weeks, things changed in the colony. The Inhumans had always worked together, but now there was something more, a deeper respect, a better understanding. New protocols were written. Human factors was added to the safety guidelines, the recognition that sometimes breaking the rules was the right thing to do. Recovered, her leg healed strong and she returned to hunting. But now when she went to the ice fields, human volunteers went with her, safety teams, backup in case the impossible happened again. Visited every day. She taught him songs, taught him about her people's culture. In return, he taught her about Earth, about humanity, about the daughter he'd lost. They healed each other in a way. One evening, 3 months after the rescue, stood at the colony gates watching the sunset. The twin suns painted the ice in colors of gold and red. Came and stood beside him. Her scales glowed softly in the fading light. Uncle, she said, why do humans help people who aren't human? Thought about it. I guess because we don't see it that way. We don't see human and not human, we see people. And when people need help, you help, simple as that. But other species don't do that. The only help, humans help everyone. Maybe that's our thing, said. Maybe that's what makes us human. We're weak and fragile and we die easy, but we care. We care about everyone, even when it's stupid, even when it might get us killed. Leaned against him. I'm glad you're stupid, uncle. He laughed and put his arm around her. Me too, kid, me too. They watched the sun set together. The ice fields turned dark. The first stars appeared. Somewhere out there in the vast galaxy, humans were doing impossible things, taking crazy risks, helping people who weren't their own species, making friends in the strangest places, being stupid in the best possible way. And realized that's what humanity really meant. Not that humans were better than other species, not that they were stronger or smarter, but that they cared. They cared so damn much that they'd walk into a frozen hell for a crying child. They'd break every rule, risk everything, defy all logic and sense. Because at the end of the day, humans couldn't stand by and do nothing. They had to help, even when it was impossible. Especially when it was impossible. That was the fire that burned in every human heart, the fire that no cold could ever touch. Soul warmth. And maybe that fire could warm the entire galaxy, one frozen night at a time. Come on, he said too. Your mother invited us for dinner. She's making thermal worm stew. You'll like it, said, her scales brightening with excitement. It's really good. Doubted that, but he smiled anyway. They walked together into the warm lights of the colony, leaving the frozen night behind. Family, that's what they'd become. Not by blood, not by species, but by fire. And that was enough.